Now that you've heard a bit about the C3 framework, I want to help you understand some of the theory that is the basis for education in museums and to demonstrate some principles of object-based learning. I'm here at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, where I work as an educator. The job of museum educators is to spark curiosity and to encourage visitors to think critically about the past, the same sort of work that you do in classrooms. To understand how we think about education here at the museum, it's important to start with constructivism. As the name suggests, constructivism is the process of knowledge construction. It's based on the understanding that learning is an active process that takes into account the experiences and the mind of the learner. In his book, Learning in the Museum, author George Hines suggests that learners must be able to associate their past experiences with the material presented. As Hines explains, the Constructivist Museum, quote, makes a conscious effort to allow visitors to make connections between the known and the new. By extension, the Constructivist classroom helps students make connections between their lives and the content of the class. So I'll show you how to use everyday objects to teach about important topics in American history. Kathy and I will also discuss this later in the course when we examine how to help students communicate conclusions and take informed action in the world. Museums emphasize informal learning, meaning that we're constantly learning through our experiences. It's the idea that we take new information, apply it to our past knowledge and experiences, and construct new meaning from it. We also talk about the kind of learning that takes place in museums as free choice learning. Informal education is based on these ideas. So these essential elements of informal education grow out of the work of Jean Piaget, a key thinker in the development of constructivism, John Dewey, who articulated the value of experience in education, and Maria Montessori, who argued that children should be given choice and independence in their learning. Another influential voice, Lev Vygotsky, believed that children's learning exists in a zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is a term to describe the added understanding children derive by learning with and from adults and older children. This includes the idea of scaffolding, meaning that children's learning can be supported by interaction with others or through structured activities that build toward a higher learning goal. So what exactly does all of this mean? It means that I use objects to spark students' interest and to encourage them to ask questions. An object can be as simple as a shoe, a button, or a house, like the one you see behind me, and its contents, including a cookbook, as you'll see. Allowing students the freedom to ponder an object gives them ownership over their learning. It means that objects make more abstract concepts in history relatable and real. So I try to inspire connections between the individual stories of people from the past and the stories of young people today. Use simple questions about objects to scaffold students' learning. Through guided analysis of objects, students can develop content knowledge and the skills of primary source analysis. So in essence, my goal as a museum educator is to invite learners into the process of discovery, to make students and their questions, their ideas about a topic, the center of any program or activity. At the Smithsonian, we provide access to the sources that help us to build new interpretations about the past, that is, the objects themselves, and we ask questions about them. We aspire to get visitors thinking for themselves, asking more questions, and hopefully uncovering new ideas in the process. But why objects? What is it about teaching with objects that's especially useful for inquiry-based instruction? Objects might be hard to decipher, but they're fascinating. There may be few clues to tell a student what it is or why it's important, but that means students' curiosity can be piqued and they may start to ask questions, which is the start of any inquiry. Museums also hold resources including images and documents to help you and your students unpack the object or the time period that you're studying. But you may be thinking, well, that's interesting, but how am I supposed to find objects and what can I use in my classes? You may be surprised to learn where we find the materials we use for demonstrations with the public, what we call our teaching objects. These are not part of the permanent collection and so can be handled regularly. So we find these teaching objects online, we find them at estate and garage sales, we scour our closets and attics for items that can inspire students. And perhaps you can do the same.